Dynamic Women Talk Radio with Sandra Beck and Linda Kreter celebrate the thoughts and opinions of magnetic, spirited, and influential women. Each week, bold, brilliant women spark vigorous conversations on the complexities of life, love, and happiness. Now here are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Linda Kreter.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Kreter, and we've got an outstanding show today, and we are going to talk about networking. Now, it's been said that women are really good at making friends, but they're not so great at networking, and I have a sneaky suspicion that is because women in general don't ask for what they want. Now, Linda Franklin, who's on our show today, has been a great influence on me. And one of the things she has talked to me again and again about is asking for what you want. You're not going to get it if you don't ask for what you want. And I've got one kid that'll do that, one kid that won't. It's hard for me. So I want to open the conversation with that, because asking for what you want is a big part of networking, because you can connect, but if you don't ask, then the system falls apart. I'm going to go to Linda Franklin first.
Okay, well, thank you for the kind words. But yeah, asking for what you want is really important, because I had a mentor that said, people are not mind readers. He used to say to me, you have enough trouble knowing what's going on in your mind, let alone anybody else's. So just tell them what you want. And the worst thing someone can say is no. But if you don't ask, you're never going to find out. And who knows what you're leaving on the table by not asking. So I think it's really, really important, especially for women who kind of stand back and let other people take the stuff off the table, and then they feel terrible that they didn't do it. So it's just an easy thing. You just have to get used to it. It becomes a habit. Ask for what you want.
And I'm going to go over to Alex Okoroji. She's coming to us today from Nigeria. Alex, how is it for you when you were building your business? Did you find it easy to network but hard to ask for what you want, or did that come naturally?
Well, first of all, thank you, Sandra, for just, inviting me and having me join this amazing conversation with all the beautiful women who are on this. For me, when I first started my business, I think it's being in a little, it's not very easy to ask for what you want. Actually, I had to learn that, right? Networking, meeting new people, and introducing yourself. Trying to build relationships beyond, or should I say business relationships, it was something that I had to learn, because at first, especially with the background that I had, coming from the entertainment industry, at first you just have this idea that everybody knows who you are, right? Well, people might recognize you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to do business with you, or that they know that you're available to do business with them, or that you're open to doing something more with them, right? And so I had to gradually just learn how to kind of like come out and, just step out and say, hey, I'd love to do something with you, or I have this great idea and I think it'll be great for you. It'll be perfect. And it'll be nice to have you on board. So that was something that took me a bit of, time to learn how to do, really.
Laurie Johnson from Texas.
Hello. Oh, hi, Laurie.
Hi. There's a bigger concept going on here, I think, that has to do with how women see themselves coming out of, and I'm going to go into this, sorry about that, the 2,000 years of male dominance in the Piscean age. So it's the construct of how the business is set up, that it is women trying to find out who they are within themselves as we're coming into an equality zone, and being able to then work within what is still considered a very lines and squares, male-dominated business construct, so that when you are trying to network, you're still trying to network based on those rules. And what we're coming into, and what I think the networking is going to be involved with, is how women do that, not based on how men have set it up, but how women are resetting it up, which is going to be the new construct as we go forward.
Very interesting. We're going to go and hear from Lisa Detres in Oregon.
I kind of agree with all of what the other women are saying. We tend to kind of sit there and chat over what we're up to, and yet I find myself, I don't necessarily ask. for business or, for assistance a lot of times. So I definitely have to agree with that.
Well, and it's funny, Lisa, you mentioned that because we've done some work together and we've been friends a long time. And, Lisa has been very important to my family and she's been very important, especially to my kids. She was teaching them for a couple years. And so I really respect her. So when I had to call her in Oregon to ask her to edit a document, I was really nervous. And I don't know why I was so nervous. I just was. And I knew Lisa would do a great job. I knew that, she might want the work, but then I thought I don't want business to affect our relationship. And I don't know if men think that way. I don't think they do. I'm going to go to Linda Kreter in Washington, D.C.
I think this is very interesting because I've been in sales since college. My first job out of college was in sales and pharmaceutical industry. And I was in that for many, many years. So sales and meeting people in a very male-dominated industry, it sort of was just the world that I knew. I was one of 11 women out of 435 reps when I was a little 22-year-old coming out and learning. And when I began starting some of the companies that I've started, I had to change my career each time or my industry focus. But I was still meeting people. I was still selling. And I have a premise that unless you can really sell yourself, you will not, and I mean that, of course, you will not be able to succeed because if you don't know yourself and if you don't know your value, then how can you present a good face to others in networking? So I found it was the very small things, a look direct in someone's eye, a very firm handshake that said, I am so glad to meet you. And by the way, my handshake's firmer than yours, not as a one-upman, but just as, I'm here because we have things that we can add value to one another. And that's what I'd like to share with you. So I have found networking to be very natural in my life. I think the least natural part of that was when I changed into working in the DC arena because I had to learn how to speak DC, which I think is a unique language unto its own.
Laurie Johnson in Texas.
Yeah, I had an instance that happened to me quite a few years ago that put things a little bit clearer for me. It was a combination of watching my younger son or my older son, who is very, very smart, be less than who he was so he wouldn't intimidate people. And at the same time, a show on Oprah where she was talking about how women will be nice or apologetic because they know they're stronger than the people they're with, including the men, and they don't want to intimidate them or get the backlash of seeming that they're on the same level or smarter. And when I saw that, especially with my son, the first thing that I did, and obviously we took him out, put him into private school because he was so freaking smart and he really excelled from there. But that was something that taught me to not be less than who I was in every situation. And if I intimidated people, that was their issue, not mine. And it made a difference in how I approached everybody else. I wasn't I wasn't being so concerned about whether my energy or my intelligence or how I was talking to them was going to put them off. I was trying to be as clear as who I was. And it made a huge difference in, I lost some people in my life because they just couldn't take intimidation. But I also gained a lot of people and gained a lot of contacts who could deal with me being exactly who I was. I think that's something that women are still finding who they are in this new energy and being able to stand in that without fear of repercussion. That if you're stronger than a man, especially in a business situation, especially in network, that to stand in what you know and get that energy or get that lesson about how you do that without denying who you are and without really throwing off the people that you're with.
Linda Franklin, we're going to go to New York right now and talk about, with respect to networking, women are leading companies, they're leading projects, they're leading charities. Why is it so important that we network?
Well, I found that out for myself very, very quickly when I left Wall Street, because when I was on Wall Street, because on Wall Street, there's a buy side and a sell side. When you're on the buy side, you're giving out business, and when you're on the sell side, you're looking for business. I was always on the buy side, so I didn't have to do a lot of networking because I was the big cheese that was giving out business. Then when I left Wall Street and started to do my own online and my charity work, I was kind of forced into networking because I needed things. I needed to tell people what I was doing now, and I needed them to get involved in whatever project I was doing at the time. It was difficult for me because I was not used to it. And to be honest with you, I didn't like it, but I had to do it even though I didn't like it. And that, in New York City, it's kind of easy because there's stuff going on every night of the week. So you can, pick and choose what you want to do to who you want to meet. But it's very important because if they don't know who you are, if they don't know what you're doing, then they're not going to get involved. So I did have a helper, a woman that's great. Her name is Trish Rubin. That was her thing. She put me right in the middle of it. She goes into a room and she just goes over to anybody and she dragged me along. And it was really nice to have someone that really knew the territory to guide me to the importance of it.
Mm. Well, and I think that's something that, we're either born with and good at, or we have to learn. I think many of us have had to learn how to ask for what we want and to even think about what we want. One of the funny things that I think was very common, especially in my peer group growing up, is we were often told what we would do, told what we would eat, told what we would have. There wasn't a whole aspect of free choice or asking. And I think in small towns, especially if you don't have a lot of money, you just grow up thinking, well, you get what you get. And that was a big mindset that I had to deal with. I still have to deal with it. And that is a change in me. And I think when I started asking for what I wanted, I became very intimidating to a lot of people. And we're going to talk when we come back from the break how powerful women are perceived as intimidating, where a powerful man will be seen as a leader. And so we're going to talk a little about intimidation and perception as women when we come back from the break. We're here today with Alex Okoroji, Kimberly Rinaldi, Linda Kreter, Linda Franklin, Laurie Johnson, and Lisa Detres. I'm your host for today, Sandra Beck. We'll be back after the break.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Did you know that the average teenager drinks twice as much soda as milk? Since 1983, sugar consumption in the U.S. is up 28%. Why is that? There are several reasons, but one of the most common is soft drinks. 20-ounce beverages have become the norm, and it's not surprising to find that 43% of our sugar comes from drinks. Sugar is blamed for poor nutritional diets. USDA data shows that people whose diets are high in added sugar eat less calcium, fiber, iron, protein, and many other important nutrients. Fat-free foods are also a culprit. Since sugar is fat-free, many people tend to think it's okay to eat as much as they want. Remember that just because a food is fat-free does not mean that it's calorie-free also. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
It's words you never heard. Most of us use computers and smart devices on a daily basis without giving much thought to the history behind the technology. The first website ever created was dedicated to information about the World Wide Web and went live on August 6, 1991. The first instant message was sent by Ted Leonsis to his wife via American Online in January 1993. It read, "Don't be scared. It is me. Love you and miss you." He later became AOL's vice chairman. The first sentence uttered on Skype was in Estonia in April 2003. As an avid internet spelunker, someone who constantly searches the web but never finds what they're looking for, the internet usually just gives me a case of trichotillomania. That's the irresistible urge to pull one's hair out.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my new app, Too Funny for Words.
Hey, ladies, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Kreter, Linda Franklin, Alex Okoroji, Laurie Johnson, Lisa Detres, and Kimberly Rinaldi, and we are spanning the globe today. We've got guests today from Nigeria, we've got from New York City, Washington, D.C., the great state of Texas, Oregon, and California. So we really have a wide variety of women today on our panel, and this is our talk radio, our party of seven, our table for seven today. And so pick up a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a glass of water and join us in this conversation that we are hoping will allow people to have conversations about what we're talking about, be validated, supported, comforted, so that they can be the best that they can be, because that's what we do as women. We support each other. And this is kind of like a modern day quilting fest over here. We're just digital. We're not quilting or knitting or sitting around a cup of coffee. We're actually at our computers from around the world coming together to really discuss some of these topics that are difficult for women. And when women get into their power, I have found, as I come into my own power, you hear words like she's intimidating, she's a ball buster. As Lisa Detres put it, rhymes with witch. You know, that word, we're called all these negative things when we come into our power. And I'm going to go to Lisa Detres in Oregon first, because intimidating is such a nice word for how strong women are perceived. And Lisa, you're a very strong woman. And I think, you know, both you and I have walked this globe enough and be told that we're intimidating, we're powerful, or use the B word. How does that affect you? And what do you want to say to especially young women coming up today?
Well, and it's a difficult thing when you're in the workplace, and, you know, a man who's being aggressive and going after what he wants is, you know, he's assertive, he's a go-getter, but a woman doing the same thing is viewed in a very negative way. And unfortunately, I found that I have to be a lot more careful about how I say things, how I do things, how I go about things. It doesn't make it any different that I'm still going after what I want, and I'm still forging forward with my life. However, there may still be a double standard in a lot of the business world where we have to be a little more careful, but that should not stop us or deter us from going after what we want. We may need to be a little bit more creative in how we ask for what we want.
Linda Franklin, New York City.
You know, intimidating. Yeah, that, you know, that's a word that you hear, and you hear the B word, and you hear all sorts of other words. But you know what? I don't think you have to pay. You don't have to pay attention to them. You have to be who you are. You have to be out there. You have to be recognized. And sometimes the people that you're intimidating the most are not the men, but the women. Because the women are the most critical of you, not the men. And that's what I have found. I think it's also a topic we can talk about, is how much are women supporting other women on the way up to the top. And from where I stand, it's not a lot, because there isn't enough women in corporate America or politics or any other arena that are getting that support from the women. The women are very fragmented these days. And that's hurting our image. We all have to stick together, but for some reason we're not doing it.
Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C.
I really enjoy this part of the discussion, because I remember being told I was intimidating at a very young age, and being completely baffled. I'm 5 feet tall. I just have an inquisitive mind. I ask questions, and I'm curious about life. And then I came to realize that some of us are blessed with an ability to process thoughts, really connect the dots that others may not, and that was intimidating to some people. I've heard it also called intensity, and I plead guilty. And it's one of those things that some people feel comfortable with and some do not. I have found that you can find both men and women who really love strong women, who are creative and curious and thoughtful and want to be around you. And those are the ones that are often, really kindred spirits, no matter their gender. And so I find that society has taken a big role in this, in my view. We went through the 80s where we were told that everybody was completely equal. And I think time has shown us that we're not equal. We are different. Can we do the same things? In most cases, absolutely. But intimidation can get in the way. And I agree with Linda Franklin that often it's been the women that are intimidated, and that's harder to handle, I think, than the men, because I think men are very black and white. And as long as you can address yourself in a direct fashion that is asking for what you want and make it very clear, that's a language they seem to understand. Women less so, in my experience.
Kimberly Rinaldi, Los Angeles.
And I really look at societal standard on this.
Mm-hmm.
I can recall being I think it was like 9 or 10 years old, surrounded by what I first experienced the Mean Girls to be, and one of them, bless her heart, asked me, "You think you're pretty, don't you?" I have this thing. I tell the truth. I stood up and I said, "Absolutely. It's genetics. It's not my fault." And she responded, "You're conceited." And they all started ragging me.
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls, 8 years old, 10 years old. And I remember having to sort of dim my light just a tiny bit to make somebody else comfortable. And you never remember the exact circumstances when you change that line in the sand, what we call your values, when you start sliding that, but you'll remember how you feel about it. And I look back on that and spending 20 years in the corporate environment, being 5'2", being female, being Hispanic, as my mother put it when I was 4, and telling me I'd be overlooked, I became, I guess, a little bit militant. But society sends us mixed messages. I can also, my mother, bless her heart, who told me, you're short, you're female, you're Hispanic, you're going to be overlooked if you don't stand up for yourself. I remember one Christmas opening a gift in front of the family, smiling oh so sweetly, looking at my aunt and saying, "Yeah, I hope you kept the receipt." Afterwards, my mom jumped me on my business on that one about being grateful, and my response was, why would I lie? I run the risk of getting another one of these. I think we get these terrible mixed messages that we can and we should, yet we get penalized or judged for doing. And I would love to see, I'd love to see it stop at the Mean Girls. Let's start teaching our daughters to really honor those who stand up and stand out and are brighter, and learn from them versus trying to dim their light.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's go to Nigeria with Alex Okoroji. Do we have Alex? Alex, can you hear me? Oh, we might have lost Alex. We're going to go to Laurie Johnson.
Hi. I have been working with a concept that came from the intimidation and also came from the idea of being conceited, because whether nature or you take care of yourself, on how you take care of your skin, on how you dress, was considered conceited. And I started thinking that you can stand in your own power without ego, which is recognizing who you are, recognizing everything that you have learned, all your skills, whether they're natural or the ones that you have attained while you are working on things yourself and while you're learning. And it comes down to, you can stand in your own power without ego. You can be proud of who you are, of what you've accomplished, what you've learned. That isn't ego, that's just fact. And one of the things that I'm also very aware of is that women, like all the women who are on today, women who are listening, that we're still teachers, and more than ever before, teachers to get people to shift on how they're looking at things, especially in the business world. Every time you come up against somebody, especially a man or a group of men, where you have to maneuver through, stand in your own power, but still maneuver through, you're teaching them something. You're teaching them a new way of dealing with things and looking at things. And they might not really want it, they might fight it, but they're getting it little by little by little. It's a terrible responsibility, because it means things are not exactly equal, because men can do what they want and women still have to maneuver around that. So far, we're getting there. But it's still that we have a responsibility, like we're talking not just to daughters, not just young children, on how to maneuver their lives better, so it's not in that same mindset, but it's being able to know that it is a responsibility, that we can make a huge difference, even if it's just a little by little by little.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties, Laurie. I don't mean to cut you off, but we can't hear you. I'm going to see if we can hear Alex Okoroji. Alex, are you here from Nigeria? Okay, so we're going to go to Lisa Detres in Oregon.
I love what these women are saying about just standing up for who you are, if you're pretty, if you're well-dressed. I worked in the LA garment industry for about 10 years, and that wasn't even an issue. We all dressed our best and wanted to look our best, and so that part just kind of goes with it. I think then I went into the customer service industry, and that taught me more about how to get what you want and yet treat everybody as if they're your customer, whether it's somebody you're trying to get business from, one of your employees, and using the kindness and just being nice to people does more to grow a business, to help you get what you want and need. That's kind of where I was going when I said you need to be a little careful about how you go after things. And I know there are some industries where that's not necessarily the case, but it's worked for me. And I think, what the other women are talking about, the mean girls and how they, try to cut you down. I definitely have seen that from other women in business as well. And that's a sad thing, because when I'm standing up, telling people what I want, or, making a point, first of all, I want to make sure that I always have data to back up what I'm asking for, why I need it, how it's going to benefit everybody involved. But it's usually the women that will try to undercut and, undermine. And, we as women really need to be more supportive of one another and not be afraid to, if another person achieves more than we do, don't be afraid to support her anyway. Work with each other and just be strong in who we are and where we're going and help each other. I think we're as women all together, we're going to achieve much more and go much farther if we work together.
That was Lisa Detres. We're here today with Alex Okoroji from Nigeria, Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C., Linda Franklin, New York City, Laurie Johnson, Texas, and Kimberly Rinaldi, Los Angeles. We'll be back after the break.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
Year, the United States Postal Service successfully ships over 160 billion packages and letters, with bills traveling through the mail at twice the speed of checks. Automated sorting machines read zip codes and directs the mail to the proper destination. But last year, they failed to read some 2.4 billion pieces of mail, all because of cacography. That's bad handwriting. So what happens to all that errant mail? The post office hires more than 700 postal clerks to decipher the most difficult ones. When a sorting machine discovers an illegible address, it scans and sends a digital image to the clerk's computers. Amazingly, the average clerk can crack the code in just 3 seconds. Not everyone can keep up, though, as management at the post office is always pushing the envelope.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here for Dynamic Women Talk Radio. And if you like what you're hearing today, you can check us out on iTunes. You can also check us out on dynamicwomentalkradio.com. We're visiting today with Alex Okoroji from Nigeria, Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C., Linda Franklin, New York City, Laurie Johnson, Texas, Lisa Detres, Oregon, and Kimberly Rinaldi, California. So we are really spanning the globe today. And we've been talking about networking. We've been talking about asking for what we want as women and how women are better at making friends in many cases than networking. And when we talk about networking, I'm going to go to Linda Kreter first, because networking is very, very difficult for many of us, and it can be intimidating as well as many other things. Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Sandra. Following on to what Lisa had mentioned earlier, and several of the other amazing women on this call, and that was to stay authentic, stay being yourself, because when you don't act like yourself, you don't have the self-confidence, you don't have the presence that you do when you're putting it all together and asking for what it is that you want or need, whether in business or personally. And at one point in my life, I had been doing extremely well, and I started to get a lot of comments about where's your balance? Why do you care so much about work? Why are you being such a success is such an important thing to you? And for a while, I was just completely puzzled. And then I pulled in, thought a little bit, and thought, wait a minute. I am not going to apologize for being a success. If that's threatening to someone or they are not comfortable with it, that is not my problem. That is their problem. But in networking, pulling it right back, I think as long as you know that you are adding value to others with whatever it is you're going to go share with them, that it pays dividends and it's worth putting it out there. The worst thing they can do is say no. And usually I tell myself, that doesn't mean no forever. That means no right now. And I can live with that. So be yourself. Don't apologize for being a success and carry yourself forward because you know you can add value to other women and to business.
Kimberly Rinaldi, Los Angeles.
You know what, and to sort of tail on to what Linda was saying, I think with networking from a female perspective, we understand there's an aspect of asking, there's an aspect of risk. That is, I think, what we're culturally or maybe even genetically geared for challenge with. I look at it, having spent, again, 20 years in corporate healthcare arena, as I can't do it all. Yeah, I'm good at a lot of things, but I can't do it all. And this is about building a team of people along with me and being available to help other people's teams get what they need out of the world. So, you know, I'm an adaptive introvert. I put that discomfort, that difficulty to the side and look at the greater good. What is going to give me the greater good, my business the greater good, and potentially somebody else. And that, I think, seems to help, at least in my perspective.
Mm-hmm. Alex Okoroji, Nigeria.
You know what? Just listening to all the other ladies say so much great stuff. You know, I was thinking, especially back home here in Africa, right? Because I think for women, some women still have a problem with understanding what exactly is networking, right? Because we say we're very good at, building friendships and making friends, but what is really networking? And really that is, how do we transform some of those friendships, right, and relationships that we have with other women into something that becomes a business relationship? And how can that sort of graduate to become something that is valuable for us in our businesses or in whatever it is that we do, whatever our career or jobs are. And just listening to that and, just talking about being intimidated, I've been described as intimidated, right? I'm doing quite a bit of stuff, from Africa, being joined, and I get to hear all of those, conversations. But I've also learned something, because I found out that I used to think that I was an extrovert. And then when I had my child, I found out I was a little introverted. And then I found a word that says ambivalent, which is that I am an introverted extrovert. But I had to find a way to, how do we become more inclusive? How do we invite more women into our fold? How do we make other women feel like, even though we're go-getters and we're achievers and we're creators and innovators and we're constantly achieving stuff and we're successful, how do we make those who are a little worried? Because yes, it's true, more women are intimidated about other women than men are about women. What can we do to make other women feel like, you know what, I can do this, to now feel inspired and motivated instead of intimidated? So maybe it's, and I think that that's where also social networking comes into play, because what are the chances that I could be connecting with a Sandra Beck all the way from Nigeria, right? Or, listening to the beautiful Kimberly or Laurie or anyone else, if not for social media, for example. So how are we able to extend, sort of an open arms to other women? And I think it's also in value, like appreciating what they're doing as well, not just what we're achieving, but how do we pay attention to what other people are doing? So if, we find something interesting about somebody else, and we can say, I like to reach out. I think you just did some amazing job, and it's okay to celebrate. I think that's the word I've been looking for, celebrate. How do we celebrate other women so that they feel included, and that's just what I had in my head.
I love that. How do we celebrate other women? We're going to go to Linda Franklin in New York.
Okay, I think that we can celebrate other women all the time, but I don't think it does a whole lot for a networking relationship. A networking relationship is a two-way street. You've got to give as much as you get. And the way someone will really recognize you and know you're for real and know that you're worth hanging on to is you do something for them first. Don't always have the ask out, but offer something that they need and follow through with it and make it happen. And I guarantee you then it's going to come back to you. I think that that's the most important thing. Words are good. Words are wonderful. Kindness is wonderful. But people want results. And I think that you have to show that you can make things happen.
Well, and go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to jump into that. Yeah, I agree with you. You definitely have to add value to other, you have to add value to someone else's business or their lives. And that's what networking is about. But I also think that for you to get that open road, right, you need to understand what they're about, because I think that a lot of times people go into networking blind. Have you done your research about this person you'd like to collaborate with or partner with or do a joint venture with? Are you paying attention to what they're achieving? What are the things? How can you synergize what you're doing with what they're doing so that they can see the value that you're going to bring? And before you extend that, do whatever you need to do for them, you need to have some sort of back research. Now, question is, are we paying so much attention to other people? Or are we focused on just ourselves? And for me, I found out that what made it easier for me to be able to partner with so many people around the globe and do so much is me paying attention to what they're achieving, what they would like to achieve. Sometimes it's not just what they've achieved, but things that that might be something that they want to accomplish, and how you can make it easier, or you can be instrumental to helping them achieve that. But if you're not focused on them as well, then you probably don't know what they want to achieve. So I think that, it's a two-way street, and it's also not just focusing on ourselves, but how do we look at the people that, would like to partner with and see what we can bring to the table for them.
I love that part about the adding the value. And I love what Linda said about don't put the ask out there first, because in my belief, networking equals a relationship. And in all relationships, you have to form a bond. It's a process. It takes time. So in my most successful networking efforts, I've built a relationship first. And that goes from very effective people, but it also who are already successful, who may not even know who I am. But I found that even in the smaller relationships where you're looking at a brand new entrepreneur or trying to introduce someone to someone else, because you can do something for them that they cannot do for themselves. And if you can do that, that's a nice way. It's an introduction or an electronic email introduction. I find that you're building that relationship. This isn't a tit for tat. This is definitely let me add value to you, because then I show you I'm real. And yes, I'd like to do business. I make no bones about that with them, but it makes a difference. And then if you can find that one that's starting out who's timid about networking, be a mentor, as someone mentioned earlier, which is really important. I think it was you, Linda Franklin. If you believe in someone before they believe in themselves, you have done a wonderful gift and blessing to them, which will lead them to do that for someone else. So I think networking is a very valuable tool that we can use both in personal relationships, but especially in business.
Linda Franklin, New York City.
I got to agree with Linda, because sometimes by helping somebody else, and you don't do it because you think you're going to get something back from them.
No.
You do it because it feels good. You know they're on the cusp. You want to push them over. And, when you do these kind things for people just out of the goodness of your heart because you believe in them, it's amazing what comes back to you. So, just don't be stingy with helping other people, because inevitably it's going to come back to you in spades anyway. Even though when you don't expect it, it's going to be such a wonderful gift.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we identify some of the themes of today's show. I'm going to just roundtable really quick and ask you for the most important thing you came up with this segment. We're going to go to Kimberly Rinaldi first.
I'm going to say the most important thing that I'm picking up from this is the ability to understand it is friendships, it is relationships. It's just in a different context.
Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C.
I agree. It's relationships, and it's also adding value to others.
Lisa Detres, Oregon.
Again, I agree with the other ladies. It's relationship and being confident that we're helping one another without having to fear damaging that relationship when we enter into the business realm.
Alex Okoroji, Nigeria.
I have to agree with them. It's really a relationship. It's building a friendship and, like you said, a relationship. And it just had me thinking about, just how men also do that. When you have men meet up over drinks, right? They share beer and chat, and then they're probably going to throw in a couple of conversations about business. But it's just this, the way in which they do it, or they meet over the golf course or something. It's just the way that they do that. It's really about the friendship and the relationship first. And somehow they're able to sort of blend that with all the other things that they want, really.
We're going to come back after the commercial break, and we're going to hear from Laurie Johnson in Texas, and we're going to hear a little bit more about this male energy transferring to female energy. I'm your host, Sandra Beck. This is Dynamic Talk Radio, Dynamic Women Talk Radio. We'll be back after the break.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
Get ready to live La Bella Vita with Dawn Catherine on TogiNet.com. Live La Bella Vita. If you're wanting to know all the beauty tricks of the trade and the latest fashion trends before everyone else, this is your show. If you admire celebrities' beauty and their fashion sense, this is your show. Do you love wine and want to know more about the process it takes to make wine from the vine to the bottle? This is your show. Live La Bella Vita. For more on the show and your host, check out our website, labellavitacosmetico.com. This is the kind of show you can sink your teeth into. If you enjoy traveling and food and family, all with an Italian flair, then you can live La Bella Vita with your host, Dawn Catherine. Wednesday nights at midnight, 11 p.m. Central, on TogiNet.com.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
It is not a myth that healthy, nutrient-dense foods are more expensive than many junk foods. Researchers at the University of Washington found that healthy foods like lean meats and whole grains have increased nearly 30% in the past 4 years, while soft drinks and candy have only gone up 15%. Since meat is one of the most expensive items that you purchase at the grocery store, it's a good idea to cut back on meat, especially for health reasons. Filling up on fresh fruit and vegetables is a great way to lose weight, keep healthy, and keep food costs down. Eating beneficial, delicious foods keeps you lean, strong, and in good health. It is possible to eat healthy food and keep costs down. Your goal is to lose weight, not money. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond. Like us on Facebook at Fitness Minute with Annette Hammond.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we are visiting today with Alex Okoroji from Nigeria, Linda Kreter, Washington, D.C., Linda Franklin, New York City, Laurie Johnson, Texas, Lisa Detres, Oregon, and Kimberly Rinaldi, Southern California, Los Angeles. Now, the reason I bring this up is I love to have different geographical, cultural experiences on the show where we can share and to see not only how different we are, but actually how common we are at our cores. And one of the things that I think that we all struggle with is kind of our masculine and feminine energy and balancing them in these beautiful bodies that God gave us. So I'm going to go to Laurie Johnson first because she's the one that I think of as the expert of masculine and feminine energy. And then I'm going to ask each one of the girls today to talk about how they balance these energies, and if they do, and what's coming up, Laurie, with this coming year of these energy shift that we're hearing so much about. So Laurie Johnson, Texas.
The energy shifts are pretty intense right now. Let me turn this down. I think I'm feeding back on myself here. We're at a time that has been coming for a long time where it's about equality, and we're just at the beginning of that. So it is kind of difficult to know that we are moving toward a time that is not going to be from masculine dominance into feminine dominance. It's the first time in at least 2,000 years that we're dealing with the equality of both. And there's a little bit more of a pendulum swing of women coming into power, women going to be in power a little bit more. We're moving into that. And both have, yes, it's all the feminine and masculine, the right side, the left side of the brain. All of that stuff is coming into balance. But there's always the pendulum that kind of gets things started before we actually get into that balance. We've probably got another 6 years of this struggle. And this year is very significant because it's kind of the last year where that male, I can be a child and say what I want ego thing is really going to be coming into play. And people who are in that are going to shoot themselves in the foot. When that happens, it's going to be the calmer minds or the parental minds, even the mother mind, that is going to come in and teach, not in the traditional sense of the mother who is the caretaker, but the mother who is the leader in being able to be balanced.
I'm going to go down round table now in the balancing of our masculine and feminine energies. I'm going to start with Linda Franklin, New York City.
Thanks, Sandra. Well, my male energy has always been pretty dominant, and I've had to learn how to bring out the feminine. I mean, it's always been in there, but I always didn't use it the way I should have. In business, certainly, I had to exude a terrible amount of male energy, and it worked, and it was good, and, I never even thought about it. It was just me. But now I certainly with age have become softer, bringing out more of the feminine. And I will tell you the thing that's helped me a lot in doing that is my dog, Lucy. I mean, she is the sweetest little thing in the whole world. And when I look at her, my heart just opens. She's just such a wonderful way to bring out my feminine energy because I feel like her mother. And since I never had children, I mean, that has really done remarkable change for me. And, and I'm loving it.
Linda, I'm just going to say you might not have ever had children, but you've adopted me, and I love every minute of it.
Well, so you are my favorite daughter.
We do that as women. I think we adopt each other and love each other. And so I just want to honor Linda Franklin for that. She's given me so much, especially since my mom passed. And that's a perfect example of women supporting women to be their best. And I'm going to go over to Linda Kreter in Washington.
No, I love that. Linda Franklin adds value to all of us. In male and female energy, I think after life dealt a couple of hard blows, I resolved that I wasn't going to divide who I was. I was going to be proud of who I was. And I don't really believe that I divide my male and female energy. I do divide my intensity based on the circumstances. I think I do it more with body language, a flash of the eyes, or I have this famous eyebrow lift that anyone who knows me is either laughing or concerned when they see the eyebrow lift. I use humor to diffuse situations as opposed to pulling out my more masculine side of things. I am a girly girl, and I've had to accept that, and I embrace it, and it has worked for me. And I especially love the freedom of just being who I am and not worrying about the masculine or feminine energy anymore, just using whatever comes forth at the time. Is generally, I've been described as a lady, and I'll take that. Because am I always that way? No, but I find that I get more done and that I am received better that way. So it may be my environment, the people I work with now, and the entire DC get along with everyone, or else you get hurt, makes a difference. But I find that I don't really divide the male and female.
Okay, we're going to go from Linda Kreter. We're going to move over to Oregon with Lisa Detres.
When we brought up the subject of the male versus female energy, I really had to stop and think about that. And then I realized I grew up with older brothers. So my whole life growing up was kind of a male-dominated life, and I didn't even think twice about it, and perhaps, for my own life, that competitiveness and that energy just comes naturally to me, especially in the business world. And learning a little bit more about customer service and how to offer my assistance and, the kindness, not weakness, but just being, coming off as a little less competitive. And that has really helped me in the business world in, being able to ask for what I need, and by helping people and letting them know I have something to offer them to help them. So, it's an interesting concept, but I'm kind of with the other ladies that I don't really have to, I don't sit there and think about, am I going male here or female? I just am what I am.
Alex Okoroji in Nigeria.
I've been thinking about this, and even though I personally don't consciously go, this is the male part of me, or this is the feminine part of me, and the masculine part of me, I do acknowledge that there is a strong masculine part of me that has probably been dominant, but in the last 3-4 years, I think I've been revealing more of the vulnerable part of me. And I remember saying that, on a show, that I'm not a weak woman who's learning how to be strong, but a strong woman who's learning how to be vulnerable. And which is why I started the whole naked movement, and the naked approach is to be able to show how transparent and authentic and vulnerable, and it's okay to embrace that, right? But there are times when I needed to step up. I mean, as a single mom, there are times when you can't afford to, you have to take certain decisions and you have to take certain actions, and at that point you have to think like the man, right? Or use the masculine side of you, because for me, I'm mommy and I'm daddy, and sometimes I have to work. I have to go on set and be away from home for so long, and that's daddy, because daddy has to go make money, right? And come back and do stuff. And so sometimes I talk to myself that way, but in recent years, I've just been teaching myself how to be more vulnerable, and I realize that I'm getting a whole lot more done, right? That I have to approach things differently. I can be softer, and I can be more patient, and I can do things, and I can still get a lot of things done without being so. I can be tough on the inside, right, and be vulnerable on the outside. So I guess I'm finding great ways to blend it.
Alex, I just want to honor you on the vulnerability chat before I go to Kimberly Rinaldi. When I was dating a guy a couple years ago, a longtime friend of mine, he used to get on me all the time. He's like, San, you're so bulletproof. San, you don't need any help. San, you don't ask for anything. And he wanted to be with me in court when I had some court issues, family issues, and he wanted to be there to support me. And I really, truly didn't know how to even receive that or accept that get support. So we started this thing called Vulnerable Wednesdays. And each Wednesday I would give a think about something I could be vulnerable about, ask him for, or talk to him. And it was really hard for me. It was very, very hard for me to be vulnerable. I didn't even know what vulnerable meant. I think raising kids on my own for so long and taking care of my dad and running my own company really kind of put a shield up around me, like a bat shield. So Kimberly Rinaldi on vulnerability.
You know what? And just to briefly comment on that, we are taught that we have to be strong to excel in a corporate environment. I'm going through perimenopause. I'm becoming this fluffy little bundle of cuddles. And from what I hear from my mom, and I love my mother, she's 75 years old and has all of this experience watching me be me, this is actually who I came in to be. The tough broad that I became, that masculine energy that I had to call forth, that stepping up was something that I developed. But according to her, this is who I was at 2, 3, 4 years old, was a cuddly little fluffy bunny that wanted to help everybody. And like you were saying, Vulnerable Wednesdays, this is, I sit down and give myself a good cry. It's like, go sit in the corner, cry about it, be a girl about it, sprinkle some glitter on it, and let's see how you feel later. I'm getting used to it.
I love that. Sprinkle some glitter on it. Linda Franklin, quickly, vulnerability. We've got about a minute and a half to the end of today's show.
Okay, to me, vulnerability is letting go. And that's really, really tough for me, and I'm sure it's tough for a lot of other women out there because we always want to feel like we're in charge and we have control. Well, we all know in essence we really don't, but letting that go is very, very... It's hard, but it's so rewarding. So being vulnerable is just letting go. What do they say? Let go and let God. I mean... It sounds kind of, cliche-ish, but you know what? It really works. And since I've learned to let go of a lot of things, so many other beautiful things have come into my life.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to thank everybody for being the guest today on Dynamic Women Talk Radio. You can find more episodes like this on dynamicwomentalkradio.com. We have Alex Okoroji coming to us from Nigeria, Linda Kreter in Washington, D.C., Linda Franklin, New York City, Laurie Johnson, Texas, Lisa Detres, Oregon, and Kimberly Rinaldi, Los Angeles. And I'm going to ask anyone listening to today's episode to send some healing energy towards Toronto for one of our frequent guests, Frankie Picasso, who is suffering from a lot of pain, and we're going to send her energy, healing, love, and light, because we can do that. As women, we are so powerful, and I want to thank you all for being my guests today. I want to thank our sponsors, and I want to thank our listeners. We are powerful, we are women, we are strong, we can get it together, and we can change the world. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you for tuning in today to Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and join us each week. You can find more shows on dynamicwomentalkradio.com.